An 89-year-old man asked for a simple sandwich. What happened next will leave you shocked. It was just a regular afternoon. Mr. Duncan, an 89-year-old man, walked slowly down the street. His steps were careful, but his heart was light. He wore a neat sweater, one his late wife had always liked on him. His hands trembled a little, but he was used to that. Mr. Duncan had been feeling a little lonely that day. He missed the warm afternoons he used to spend with his wife. She would make him a plain butter sandwich, just bread and butter, and they would sit together, sipping tea and talking about life. Those little moments had always made him feel loved. Today, he thought, maybe a sandwich from the café would remind him of those sweet days. The café was busy. It was filled with young people typing on laptops, laughing and chatting with friends. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Mr. Duncan stood at the counter waiting his turn. When it came, he gave the barista a kind smile and asked, "Could I have a plain sandwich, please? Just bread and butter." The barista gave him a strange look. "Just bread?" she repeated. She tilted her head as if she didn't understand. Mr. Duncan nodded. "Yes, just bread and butter, if you don't mind." The barista gave a small laugh and said, "Sir, that's not on the menu." Mr. Duncan blinked, a little confused. It was just a simple sandwich, nothing fancy. She smirked. "We don't make plain sandwiches like that here. You'll have to pick something else." At that moment, some customers nearby overheard the conversation. One young man whispered to his friend, "Who even eats bread with butter anymore?" His friend laughed. "Maybe he thinks it's 1950. Mr. Duncan stood there, feeling his heart sink a little. He could hear the giggles and whispers, and his face grew warm with embarrassment. The barista, feeling bold from the giggles around her, decided to make a joke. She rolled her eyes and said, "How about I put some avocado on it? Would that make it trendy?" The cafe burst into soft laughter again. Mr. Duncan looked down at his trembling hands. He wasn't trying to make trouble. All he wanted was a sandwich that reminded him of his wife. He whispered quietly, "It's just something my wife used to make for me." But the barista didn't seem to care. She just shrugged and said, "Sorry, we don't do things like that." The laughter grew louder. Mr. Duncan stood there, feeling like he didn't belong. His heart ached, not just from the words, but from the feeling that the world had changed so much that even kindness was hard to find. For a moment, everything felt too heavy. He thought of walking out, but his feet wouldn't move. He stared at the counter, his eyes stinging with tears he tried to hide. He whispered again, more to himself than anyone else, "I was only asking for a sandwich." The cafe went quiet for a moment, but it was too late. The damage had been done. Mr. Duncan felt small, invisible, and lost. Just as Mr. Duncan was about to turn and leave, a soft voice broke the silence. "I'll pay for the sandwich." Everyone turned to look. It was a woman sitting at the back of the cafe. She was in her mid-40s with a kind smile and warm eyes. She stood up, walked to the counter, and said to the barista, "I think what he's asking for is kindness. Let me pay for it." The barista looked surprised and didn't know what to say. The woman ordered exactly what Mr. Duncan had asked for, bread and butter. She turned to him and said softly, "Please, sit with me while you eat." Mr. Duncan looked at her with grateful eyes. He gave a small nod, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. When the sandwich arrived, the woman handed it to Mr. Duncan with a warm smile. He took a bite, and for a moment, it felt like he was back with his wife, sitting at their kitchen table, sipping tea together. The woman asked Mr. Duncan if he wanted to share his story. And so, as he ate his sandwich, he told her about his wife. He told her how, every afternoon, she would make him a plain butter sandwich, and they would talk about everything and nothing. It was the simplest part of his day, but it was the part he cherished the most. The woman listened carefully, without interrupting. She didn't judge him or laugh at him. Instead, she shared a little about her own life, how she too had lost someone she loved. Their conversation wasn't long, but it was meaningful. For the first time in a while, Mr. Duncan felt like someone saw him, not as an old man, but as a person with a story. Sometimes what people ask for isn't just about the thing itself, it's about the memories attached to it. A sandwich may seem like nothing, but to Mr. Duncan, it carried the weight of a lifetime of love. It's easy to judge or laugh at things we don't understand, but everyone is carrying something, an old memory, a story, or a longing for a time that has passed. A little kindness can go a long way. Conclusion. In a world that moves so fast, it's easy to forget how much kindness matters. Sometimes the smallest gestures can mean the most. If you ever see someone struggling or asking for something that seems strange, take a moment to care. You never know, you might be giving them more than you think. What do you think about Mr. Duncan's story? Have you ever seen or experienced something similar? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe that kindness can change the world, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Thank you for watching.